Long before Silicon Valley built its first chatbot, the Soviet Union built a machine designed to make one decision. It wasn't trained on data and it didn't learn, but it could listen, it could judge, and if certain conditions were met, it would launch the apocalypse. They call it Dead Hand. It was a prototype AI, the first AI with a kill switch for humanity. This is the story of a man who built it and how its logic lives on in today's AI-run kill chains. In the final breathless years of the Cold War, in a sealed military chamber under Moscow, a Soviet colonel stared at maps of America's missile silos and imagined the silence after the first strike. His name was Valery Yurynch, not a general, not a politician, but a systems architect, a war planner, a man obsessed with one question: what if we die before we can strike back? It wasn't just rhetorical fear. In the 1980s, the Soviet Union was gripped by paranoia. US President Ronald Reagan had just called them the evil empire. NATO was running war simulations so realistic that the Soviets thought that there were real preparations for war. In response, the Kremlin launched Operation Ryan, a worldwide surveillance effort to catch any sign of a surprise US nuclear strike. But Yurynch didn't trust spies, he trusted systems. He believed that if Moscow was hit and communication severed, the world needed a backup decision maker. One immune to fear, one immune to confusion, one that couldn't die in a fireball, so he proposed something radical. A system, not a man, that could retaliate, and the Soviets agreed to build it. They called it Perimeter. To the outside world, it would become known as Dead Hand, the most chilling machine ever designed. This was no missile, no bomb, it was a logic engine. A decision system, a Cold War artifact that eerily resembles the architecture of modern artificial intelligence. Once activated, Dead Hand would monitor real-world data across the USSR. Systemic sensors listening for nuclear detonations, radiation detectors scanning for fallout, communication nodes checking if Moscow was still speaking, command line checks for confirmation codes from Soviet leadership. If nuclear indicators spiked, and if there was silence from the Kremlin, then Dead Hand would make the final call. It would launch a command missile not carrying a warhead but carrying orders. Those orders would unlock broadcast encrypted signals to every surviving nuclear silo, submarine, and bomber. It would tell them, strike now, everyone. It would tell them, strike now, everyone. Dead Hand didn't have a neural net. It didn't learn, but it made high-impact decisions using sensor fusion, conditional logic, and autonomous activation protocols. It was, in truth, one of the earliest real-world prototypes of an AI decision-making and military doctrine, a proto-AI kill system, hardwired into the nuclear chain of command. It couldn't reason, but it didn't need to. It was built to react with finality. In September of 1983, the system was almost triggered. A Soviet satellite detected 5 incoming US missiles. The alert sounded, lights flashed, it looked real. The man on duty, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, stared at the screen. His orders were clear: report it. But something didn't feel right. Why would they only launch 5? Petrov thought. A real strike would mean hundreds. So he disobeyed. He reported a malfunction, and he was right. It was a false alarm, sunlight reflecting off of clouds. But had Petrov followed orders, Soviet forces would have mobilized. Dead Hand, if activated, might have completed the chain. One man disobeyed protocol, and one man stopped the machine. The Cold War ended, the Berlin Wall fell, and the USSR collapsed, but Dead Hand didn't. And in 2009, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist David Hoffman revealed that Perimeter still existed, dormant but functional, modernized, integrated into Russia's digital command architecture. Today it's believed to be on standby, still able to issue final orders if command is lost. But the real danger isn't in the bunkers beneath the Urals. It's in the logic that Dead Hand pioneered, logic that's now being fed into modern military AI systems around the world. In her 2024 book, Nuclear War, A Scenario, author Annie Jacobson describes a chilling reality. If a nuclear launch is detected today, the US president may have just 6 minutes to respond. And that decision is now shaped by automated systems, real-time data satellites, and AI support threat modeling. The United States has launched Project Maven to integrate AI into the battlefield assessments. China is investing billions into AI-run war simulations and command networks. Russia speaks openly about AI-enhanced strategic systems. It's no longer about relays and logic gates. Today's machines learn. They model behavior, they predict escalation, and soon they'll be trusted to act. Yurynch saw this future. Before his death in 2012, he warned, Perimeter was never meant to be permanent. It was a stopgap, a failsafe. But if machines begin making these decisions, if we surrender judgment, then we invite the end. He understood the perimeter wasn't intelligence, but it was decision automation applied to the most dangerous trigger on Earth. Now with deep learning and black box models entering military doctrine, that automated judgment is returning. Faster, smarter, but not necessarily safer. The colonel spent most of his final years in Moscow. He never saw himself as a villain. He believed that he had helped prevent war by ensuring retaliation was certain. He also knew you cannot build peace on automation. Peace requires doubt, judgment, humanity. Dead Hand was not AI. But it was a prototype of what happens when we remove humans from ultimate decisions. And now in our rush to make war faster, more predictive, more intelligent, we may be building its successor. Dead Hand was supposed to fire only if we were gone. What happens when the next one fires because we trusted it too much to ask?